This is Dr. J, and I'm here today to talk to you about doing a retirement projection. When we were doing a retirement projection for a client, ideally I would have some financial planning software that would allow me to make the projection more complex and take into account more factors such as inflation. But even without one, we can do a very rudimentary one. And it is very important to understand how the mathematics work so that when you want to change the variables, you understand what you're doing. So doing a retirement projection is a three-step process. Step one, we identify how much money we're going to need on an annual basis. So once we're retired, how much income will I need? Gross income. Traditionally, we said 70% of your pre-retirement income. Why? Well, there's certain things that you hopefully won't have, certain expenses that you won't have in your retirement, such as typically a mortgage. Kids might have moved away from home, things of that nature. You also won't be saving anymore. Instead of investing, you'll now be divesting. However, we've also found that some of those assumptions no longer hold. People are now carrying mortgages into retirement, and some expenses go up. Say, for example, travel. What does everybody want to do when they retire? Everyone says they want to travel. But so what we should do is we should do an extensive needs analysis. That's beyond the scope of this course, so we will just use 70%. Or I will give you the number for step one. If it's not given, 70%. So with your financial plan, the project that you're doing, just use 70%. Second step, given how much I'm going to need on an annual basis, calculate the lump sum I would need at retirement, at the beginning of retirement, to be able to generate this cash flow on an annual basis. And finally, that number is the number I need to save up to. So calculate the periodic monthly or annual savings necessary from now until retirement to be able to achieve the lump sum. So let's take a look at a question. Let's say I have somebody who had $50,000 worth of pre-retirement income. Now, I do want to subtract off from that, from the number that they need, any government retirement supports. But for this question, we'll ignore that and just say they're not going to have any government retirement supports. And some people feel very strongly that they don't want to rely on that possibility. And if they have enough income, they can decide that they're not going to rely on that possibility, because some people don't trust that the government retirement supports will be there. So let's say that somebody had $50,000 worth of income pre-retirement, and so we want them to be able to have 70% of that in retirement. So we want them to be able to have $35,000 per year income in retirement. Now, again, I would subtract off from that number things like Canada Pension Plan, old age security. We won't in this question. It is a realistic assumption. I have clients who would come to me and say, no, I want to plan as if I'm not going to get that. So that's step one. Step two, if I want to have $35,000 on an annual basis, what do I need to do? What do I need to have to generate that kind of income? So where do we start? Define our variables, no different than any other question. So how long do we have? So let's say that if we look at mortality tables, we see that on average people live to be about 80, a little longer for women, a little less for men, but around 80. But we don't want to use an 80 life expectancy. We want to plan beyond that. Never had a client come to me and say, I outlived my money, there was money left over when I passed away. Well, of course they're dead, so they would never say that. But I never had beneficiaries say, hey, you gave my parents bad advice, there was money left over. But certainly if somebody outlived their money, that would be a bad thing. So we want to be conservative. We often say age 90. It's a nice round number. So 90, let's say they're 65 when they retire. That's typical retirement age. So we have to plan for 25 years. How much are they going to earn? Typically, people are a little bit more conservative in retirement. So this would be a discussion, but let's use 5%. Present value is what we're trying to solve for. At the beginning of their retirement, how much money do they need? Payment, we know that, $35,000. Future value, when they pass away someday, how much money do they need? So if we plan perfectly, they would have nothing left over at retirement. Some people would come to me and say, I want to leave something behind for my children. So I could plug a number in there. If they said, I have 2 kids and I want to leave them 50 grand each, I could plug in a future value of $100,000. So present value, I plug all of this into my calculator and solve $493,000. So they say you need $1 million to retire, but this is only one person. So if you had 2 people wanting to generate the same amount of income, we've just solved there and said they need $1 million. Now, if I want to take this number and say the amount of money that they need when they begin retirement is the same as the amount of money that they need when they end their working life. So step 3 is what they're saving up towards. So it's another time value problem. So this amount of money, the money that they have when they begin their retirement, is also the amount of money they need to have when they end their working life. So the present value becomes the future value. What they need at the beginning of retirement is what they need at the end of their working life. How long do they have to save up for it? Well, they need to end at age 65 minus whatever age now. Let's say age 25. We have 40 years to save up. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive. We have a long time horizon, so let's say we average 7%. Say you're just coming straight out of school and you have nothing saved up. If somebody already did have something saved up, you could plug it in there. And now we're solving for the payment. How much do they have to save up? Plug all of that into my calculator. Just over $200 a month. Just over $200 a month. But let's consider, what if you procrastinate? Most people in their 20s aren't thinking about retirement. They're like, oh, retirement, it's so far away. People maybe think about it in their 30s, but typically start thinking about it in their 40s. So let's say I change the end. Let's say the person started in their 40s and they only had 20 years instead of 40. You'd think you'd have to save up twice as much, but that ignores the power of compound interest. So you look at this. I save $2,400 a month for 40 years, sorry, $2,400 a year for 40 years to get $35,000 for 25 years. Wow, compound interest is powerful. But what if I only save for 20 years? If I change my end to 20, go ahead and try that, solve for payment. Your payment is now more like $12,000. The rule of thumb is half the time, 4 times as much. If you have half the time to save, you have to save 4 times as much. In this example, it's actually 6 times as much. Instead of, no, that's closer to 5 times as much. Instead of having to save roughly $200 a month, I have to save roughly $1,000 a month. Is $200 a month doable for somebody on a reasonable income? So you graduate school, you got a job, you're making decent money? Absolutely. $1,000 a month, bit more of a stretch. So a lot of people want to wait till later, but not necessarily a good idea. So remember, we didn't take into account inflation in this example. We're just simplifying it. In later courses, we will include inflation in the calculation if you decide to continue on with finance. When it comes to an exam, I could test you on any piece of this. I won't give you one question that encompasses the whole thing, but I could give you part 2, part 3, part 1, and ask you to solve any piece. So thanks for tuning in today. Hope you understood, but go ahead and review the video as many times as you need to, and I will provide you some more questions to practice on. Thank you. Have a good one.